Welcome again to another Blueprint Blether. We're still down here at Raeburn. Great for Ed and Rackers to hosting us. It's a glorious day out there. It's a wee bit nippy here under the shade. So if you hear the chattering of teeth on the microphones, and apologise for that. But it's great to have. We've got a few guests with us today. So obviously Scotty is always here, which is good. And we've got Iain Berthinussen, aka Bertie from Bats. And we've got a bit of a special one today. The guy behind the camera has decided to step into the light and put himself up for interrogation.
Put myself up for it. You told me about 5 minutes after I turned up.
Yeah, because I forgot to book someone else. But no, Calum Johnston. And actually, we're going to have a bit of a different spin. So Calum, first of all, what is it you do with Scottish Rugby? Just tell us quickly.
So I'm the content producer of Scottish Rugby. So I work within the broadcast team, which is currently, there's three of us, and Angus and Tom. But my focus is mainly within club rugby and within rugby development and game development, obviously. So most things that you see to do with club rugby, whether that be league highlights or some of the stuff that we see on training and education, that's mostly me. So that's kind of been my job now here for about 2 years, working closely with the likes of yourselves and with the regional managers and the regional teams.
So yeah, we actually figured out that Calum probably watches more rugby than most of us, and by coincidence, when I asked you to step onto it, I didn't actually realise that. So basically, we asked Calum on because he's recently done his Coaching Essentials course, because he's clearly interested in the game, wants to know a bit more about it to kind of supplement just his work, but also we're going to get him involved in coaching. But by coincidence, I didn't actually realise that Bertie was the educator on Calum's course. So we're just going to delve into like what you picked up, what's so good about a course with Bertie, why other people should do it, and how you're going to use him moving forward. Because obviously one part of the day job for me and Scotty is that we write these courses and we want coaches to experience them and collaboratively work with our developers to make them better. So it's very rare we manage to chat to someone in depth about someone who's just been through that. So tell me why do you want to go on it?
Well, I mean, I've worked at Musselburgh filming their games now for about 9 years. So came out of college and got offered the chance to just do some CPD and just do some more coaching, some more videoing, and that was a lot of the coaching stuff, so a lot of the analysis, uploading it to Coach Logic as per the minimum standards of the league, and then just been doing it now, obviously watching games now for about 9 years. Kind of, you see how the game changes over time depending on the situation. Obviously, like, we've had some good seasons, some up seasons, some down seasons when we managed to get into the Premiership. You know how we went on a run of I think it was 9 wins and 12 or something like that. So it was kind of interesting to see what the team was doing. So I was watching a lot more of the games. And then when I started working here, I was working with yourselves day in and day out. And there was a lot of times when you'd be talking about some stuff on the course or some stuff about rugby in general. I'd be sitting there going what on earth are they on about, kind of thing.
Most people are like that, don't worry.
But one of the first videos I actually did was the Coaching Essentials trailer video. So that was the first shoot I attended. And it was
that last Wade, wasn't it?
Last Wade in 2021 with Gordie Lyon was on the course that day.
Formerly known as Gordon Lyon.
And it was always something that I thought in the back of my mind, I really should probably get on it and do just do it. And I'd applied for it, signed up for it a couple of times, and due to other things going on, I couldn't make it. So eventually managed to make it along to Haddington, where it was Bertie and Andy Muir doing it, and
there was a team that
it was a really good mixture of different coaches as well. So we had obviously not a lot of senior coaches. There was a lot of youth and mini coaches that were on it as well. People that were just trying to get into the game, and most importantly, just get coaching qualifications as what should be a minimum standards of the game. I think the main thing I learned from that course is, it's just something that everyone should have, really, because there was a lot that we talked about on the course. Obviously the APES principles of play, and very recently quite a lot about the Blueprint as well, which I knew quite a lot about because I've been helping you guys develop and do some of the content for it as well. So that was some of the main things I took away from that, were just obviously making the sessions enjoyable. Of someone who doesn't coach, gave me a lot more confidence if I did want to start coaching and start taking that to the next level, that I could get into it.
It's something that obviously we're quite passionate about, coaches learning, and we just talked in a previous Blether about actually making the experience for players really important, and what a coach's role is in that, and this course goes into it. And Bertie, you've been probably you're one of our most experienced deliverers. What do you think of the course? Is something you enjoy doing, and what's it like working with a range of new coaches as well? Because obviously you've got loads of experience, so you could work probably anywhere from like coaches at the top of our game to like brand new ones. But yeah, what's it like for you guys working on these kind of courses?
It's brilliant, to be honest. I mean, I think I can remember commenting on the course that I had my own little black book there, and I probably came away about 4 or 5 pages of a lot of different ideas. You know, specifically some of the conversations we had around tackle and things like that, and how we introduce it, and you know, some of the coaches that were on that course had some really, really good you know, ideas around starting from the bottom up, for example, things like that. So I think, well, you know, I love it. I love just chatting rugby, bit of a rugby nose. So you're just in it all the time. So I think maybe as a nation we don't ever sit down and just chat as much as we probably should. So that's one of the benefits, I think, of the new courses as well. Is just that ability to just create conversation and not have to concentrate so much on a competency-based format where they have to reach certain. It's like, well, every individual is going to develop in a slightly different way, but can we make this course as good as possible for those individuals? And you know, just getting out and getting active with the guys in on that environment, and just learning a bit more on the ground about what they're coaching, you know, day to day, week to week, and what do they want to work on, and what can we try and impart on them a little bit. I think that the whole player centred part to it as well is really important. What I find is quite a lot of the eureka moments are the simple things, like the environment. I don't know what your thoughts were, Calum. So like having all your balls pumped up, having clean bibs, all these things, you know, things that people probably don't even think about, but you know, they do make a big difference. And they're some of the things that you see people intensely scribbling down, you know, at the very beginning, at the start, going, you know, we need to make sure that we're doing that, because it is, you know, it's making it the best experience that we possibly can be to keep those players involved.
Players are customers. Sometimes
100%.
Sometimes forget that coaching in sport, there's a choice to be there, isn't it? So like, what can we do in our power? We call it the 1%ers. But yeah, it's great to hear those things about the course, and that's something we were quite deliberate about, wasn't it? About changing it from being that assessment focused to being a bit more of a welcome to rugby, this is what we kind of want to go after.
Yeah, I think as soon as you have a competence, for example, you know, your main focus goes into achieving that competence, not necessarily what happens like after. So there's an end point. You don't want it. There's no end point.
You don't complete coaching.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. We've said that in a previous like, no one in the history of the universe has ever completed coaching, and it's unlikely that anyone ever will, because it's forever changing. Rules, people are like super complex, so we need to know a bit about that. We need to know a bit about how they learn. We also need to know a fair bit about the game, but also we don't need to overcomplicate things. So like keep it simple, stupid as well. I don't know.
The point there that Bertie made was that, you know, you had your little black book there, and it was a case of everyone's learning off each other. And on that course, what was really good was that people were coming up with their own suggestions and doing a lot more showing it a lot more. I will blame Bertie for multiple times picking me out for doing the practical for no reason whatsoever, just happened to catch him in the eyesight.
Age profile.
He was wearing his white boots as well.
I had his Scottish rugby gear on, I thought he's in.
That's why.
But it was good that we were all learning off each other, and that people were coming in with their own ideas that they'd already started to utilise in their training sessions before they came on the course.
I think that's the principle, isn't it? Like Scottish rugby, we're here to kind of like put a bit of a framework around, but ultimately coaches learn more by chatting to each other and looking at stuff and finding out, and just we want coaches to try to be a bit creative. There's things around the tackle, and there's some things like the blueprint that we're trying to just nudge towards, but you're right, hopefully that kind of came through. In terms of the tackle stuff, would you feel, what kind of things did you pick up, and to move forward into if you were to go coach?
Well, obviously it's I think definitely for someone who's coming into coaching as well, I imagine that if you'd been coaching for years and stuff like this, new change in the tackle height is going to be a big change for quite a lot of not just coaches but a lot of players. But I think it is just the competency of each individual coach. Like, I personally feel that I can now go into a training session, obviously at the mini level we should all be doing that, but like when going into, if you were going into senior level or even just into youth level, that we're able to competently coach this new tackle law coming in. And I think definitely that was showcased on the course with the way that it was delivered. So I definitely feel a lot more competent around that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're chatting a lot about confidence and competence. I think it's really important that we instill that in players, and not only players but also in coaches, to be able to deliver it. So like Calum's confidence in coaching the tackle, that we're not going to cause harm to our players, so that would sit in our acronym APES, where it's active, purposeful, enjoyable, safe. So we're also nudging towards the purpose there of doing the right thing at the right time, enough activity, but also from a safety point of view, that we give coaches that confidence to go and try things within those parameters.
So a couple of things that really come out there is sort of, you were talking about actually how the course has shifted from being one where we had to tick off certain things to see, in, let's be honest, quite a simulated moment, to being one to kind of getting coaches to kind of talk and network with each other and just to kind of chat rugby. So the course now is, we see it as a start point. It's a start of a coaching journey. Coach, you're on the start of your journey. What sort of things would you like to see, well, both of you, so once a person leaves a course, what do you think is the best way for coaches to kind of continue that learning, and what would you have them doing?
I think definitely just communicating with other coaches.
Yeah.
Like, just obviously, like, especially with the sort of age range that these coaches that were on the course as well were coaching, so it was a lot of mini coaches, so a lot of, I'd say probably like primary 3 to primary 7 kind of coaches. So it's like, you know, obviously everyone's going through the same kind of journey as well. Like, everyone was starting on the same journey, and they're not saying teaching exactly the same thing, but they're all doing it for the exact same reason. It's to improve these players going forwards. So it's just communicating with each other, making sure that, you know, we're all on the same track. Like, no one's trying to do different things, you know, like making sure that when kids go to festival, going off the APES principle as well, like that they're all enjoying themselves and they've got the purpose of being there, which is to play rugby and to improve. So I think definitely, and we saw that on the course as well, was a lot of communication between coaches, especially when we're going into talking about sessions, stuff like that as well. So
yeah, look, I think one of the biggest things as an educator on those courses is going to festivals and games and fixtures afterwards, no matter what age group it is, whether it's the coaching essentials, aspiring, and recognising people that have been on the course, and almost like the nod of the head, or how are you getting on, how's things going, and you know, so that barrier's broken straight away. You know, whether they're from different teams or whatever, there's a common thread there, and you can start to have a conversation about how's your coaching going, how's your team getting on, you know, what are your challenges, what's going really well. And like, to me, that's one of the biggest things that, you know, we need to try and encourage and keep going, whether that's clubs as a separate unit, or whether that's small regions within a region, or little communities or pockets, just to sit down and have that conversation about how we're all evolving. You know, everybody plays the game in a very similar way. It's just certain players are better at picking the right options than others, specifically as we get up the age groups and into senior rugby. So we can all learn and sort of develop through having those conversations.
I think it's one, isn't it? Actually, we're not actually against each other, which sounds weird. I know rugby, like it's not like one team versus another. We're all fighting the same battle and trying to get kids involved in rugby from our area. So it's great that we're talking about having communities of practice. And I think that's like kind of our vision a wee bit, isn't it? That for learning, that there's little things, like little points where we all get together and we do learning, and then actually the better stuff happens away and away from the course, and we're going to hopefully see more of that.
Yeah, most definitely. Like, what do you think, Bertie? How many clubs were represented on that course?
Oh, I think there was nearly 30 participants at the course. There must have been certainly 8 or 9 different clubs there at least, I would have said. So, you know, it's great to just get that show of hands off, you know, what clubs are already meeting as a community, as a group, to discuss what clubs maybe aren't, you know, what are some clubs doing to educate and develop their own coaches in-house, what other clubs doing, you know, and just to, straight off the bat as an educator on it, just to hear what different things are happening in and around the area.
Yeah, it's shared learning, isn't it? Sort of guided discovery, there'll be a number of blind spots that everyone has within their coaching or their club environment that maybe another team has observed, or have you thought about doing this? I hadn't actually thought about that. So there's a learning aspect, but that's awesome to hear that there were so many people in attendance, but more so the span of clubs.
Yeah, and I don't know what your thoughts are, Calum, on it, but it was really apparent from the coaches, particularly the younger age group coaches, that there may be a coaching team of 3, 4 or 5 and they're all trying to do everything.
Yeah.
And look at everything and look at everything all the time. And it's just getting that trying to get them to understand that approach, that particularly in those younger age groups, it's about developing aspects of the game as we go along. We don't need to look at and try and look at everything within that hour or 90 minutes that we have on a Sunday that then goes to 2 hours or 2.5 hours, and is that experience the best experience that the kids are getting?
You're not going to change these players into the next Finn Russell or the next Stuart Hogg overnight. Like, it is going to take time for these players especially to develop, but it's how you're planning your sessions and you make it the most enjoyable experience for these youngsters coming forward to make them want to stay in the game as well.
And that's the key thing, of course, doesn't it? It gives you some simple tools to help you just focus in on that moment. So the feedback, I think we focused on to like good because. Just have a look, like that's good because that. I'll try this one more thing. Your session design tools. Do the game. Here's a skill breakout, and here's a bit of difference between skill and technique. But I think a lot of the course talks about environment. Like, why should people come to rugby in your role as a coach in doing that? So the 1%ers, high-fiving players as they come in, making sure that we talk about you coach people first, the subject's rugby, and I think that's the kind of concept of the course, isn't it? So it's not overbearing. We're not trying to load of stuff onto it. We do talk about the tackle because I think we are making the course minimum standard. So from August 2024, every coach should have a coaching qualification. Now that's mainly because if you are coaching the tackle, then it's really important, as you talked about, having the confidence to go, well, I know what that is now, and then how to develop that. And if you listen to our Blether on Mini Rugby, we can talk about there's loads of different ways of doing it. You don't always have to do a tackle to coach the tackle. So whilst it's the minimum standard, hopefully what's coming through from this is actually it's a really positive thing to come on and do, that it's going to put you in touch with a load of like-minded people. It's going to connect you into the game. Sometimes coaching can be quite a lonely slog at times when you get into like the January morning, it's like 3 degrees outside. You're like, right, I've got 20 players now. I've got to keep this positive, that actually something to bounce off.
Yeah, I look at it.
Happy.
I think as well, like your mini and youth coaches are predominantly the parents or carers of those kids that are involved in it, and whatever line of work they're in, as a parent or whatever, you'll go and do some CPD annually or however often and stuff. But I think that it's that encouragement to understand that, well, in essence, that's what, by going on one of these courses, that's what you're doing. You're bridging that gap and just extending your knowledge. And if you can take 1 or 2 little things away from that, then is that not going to give your kids and the other kids that are in your age group that better experience? And if that is the case, then that's to me what it's all about.
And even if they don't stay in rugby, which obviously we hope they do, it's good to have just that behind you, and it gives you that extra knowledge of the game that you might not have had before as well. Just how perhaps when you watch an international game or you're watching a club game, like how maybe perhaps these senior players have been taught over the week or in the sessions that they've been in, and it gives you that kind of insight in what it's like to be a coach.
We're going to just a load of rugby fans sign up for courses now to learn about the game.
Yeah.
So, just to wrap up, why should someone come on a course, and what is the one thing that you took out of it the most?
The one thing I took out the most, I think I've said it multiple times in this well, but it's just make the session enjoyable. Yeah. Like, don't get bogged down into like trying to make it the most like rugby session. If it's like if the kids or whoever you are, the players aren't enjoying it, and just make it a bit more fun for them, like change the game up a lot more. I would say that's probably the one thing I'd take away from it, is making it most enjoyable, and just come up, because you get to meet a lot of minded coaches within the community that you might meet in the future at these festivals and at these events as well. So yeah, that would be the one reason I would say get on.
Happy days. Should we wrap up there?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Cool. Cheers again for coming, and we'll catch you next time on another Blether.